So we've talked a lot about the OHL, and you've obviously discussed how maybe more well-rounded it is compared to some of the other major junior leagues in North America. The one thing I do want to ask you about, especially regarding the OHL, is the news that there may or may not be body checking taking place in the OHL this year. Obviously, the Ontario Health Minister, Health and Sport Minister, I believe it was. I don't remember her name off the top of my head, but she's come out and said, look, if the OHL wants to play, you got to have no body checking because, you know, the potential that it could have to spread the coronavirus. You might know a little bit more about this than us because obviously you follow the OHL far better than us, but has there been any more sort of discussion about how that's going to work? I think I saw the Ontario Premier. Is it the Premier that they call the guy in charge of each of the provinces? He said that he wants to have body checking. It still sounds like there's a bit of infighting within the government there. Do you think there's going to be no body checking? Is there going to be body checking? Like, what's the latest in terms of the rules and how the OHL is going to go about doing things this year, if there is a this year?
Yeah, it was a very weird situation this week because we had the Ontario not health minister, Ontario Sport and Tourism and whatever else she does, Lisa McLeod. You had it just adamantly saying, right, it's going to be, if the OHL wants to come back, there's going to be no body checking, no contact whatsoever. It's a health matter, not a politics matter, and a whole bunch of other things she was saying. Interestingly enough, another thing she said was that she came to the conclusion that there should be no body checking by watching the QMJHL, the Quebec League, because that started up in October, and there have been a lot of coronavirus outbreaks on those teams. What's interesting to me is that she says, okay, no body checking because there's been outbreaks in the QMJHL. As far as I'm aware, there's been no evidence out of the QMJHL that it was teams playing each other that caused the outbreaks. They were all localized on the teams themselves. But I'm not a health minister. I don't know that kind of thing. So she was very adamant. She was replying to everyone on Twitter. People were getting annoyed. And then the Ontario's Premier, Doug Ford, was like, I'd like to see there be body checking. This isn't decided yet. There hasn't been a decision taken. So no one quite really knows where we're at. We do have about 3 months to actually come up with an answer on this, whether there will be body checking or whether they won't. Personally, I don't understand the decision to not have body checking. I think it might be one of the measures you take to prevent people getting too close to each other, to prevent a COVID spread. But you take that measure way after you do things like separating players on the bench, making them all wear masks in the locker room, limiting the time on the team bus and everything. And those things are just not going to happen. So body checking feels like too little too late if you're not going to do the rest of those things to me. And realistically, how much contact are you actually going to have with someone else by throwing them a hit? If you ban body checking, you're going to have more time digging for pucks in the corners. There'll be people in closer proximities trying to battle for pucks. So it doesn't make sense to me. And I know there were a lot of people on the yay physicality in hockey side of Twitter that were very angry at her. I don't mind about physicality in hockey. I would watch hockey if there was no body checking. I just don't understand the decision to take it out, especially when it's such a crucial skill for these teenagers to learn, these young players to learn in terms of decision making and what you do on the ice and where you position yourself on the ice. It's such a crucial skill for the next level. I just can't see a season going ahead with no contact, no body checking whatsoever. It just doesn't make sense. It just wouldn't be the OHL. It wouldn't be OHL hockey. But as things are playing out right now, I honestly don't think we'll have an OHL season at all. But I live in hope.
Don't we all? Don't we all? I mean, we've got to have something to keep us, occupied with all of the lockdowns and everything else going on. So it sounds like, obviously, like you said, nothing's been decided entirely in terms of body checking. It might just be a couple of people jumping the gun or wanting to put their stamp or their opinion on how they think the season should run. I think it's a good point that you make about, will it make a huge difference in whether it'll actually curb the spread of the virus if the virus is present on the team. I'm very much in agreement with you in the sense that there's so many other steps that should be taken in order to limit that as a possibility. That let's be honest, I remember listening to, I think it was Overdrive on TSN. They did a discussion about this. They mentioned nobody's going face to face with somebody when they check them. They're not like breathing into their face. So
No.
the chance of the virus actually being spread in a body from body checking is kind of minuscule. And then the other thing they brought up, which I think is really important, is the fact that if there's no body checking and they take out that kind of physical element of the game, yes, it might become more of a skill game. And we've seen examples of other leagues that might not necessarily have as much checking. Women's hockey has been an example where everybody's like, well, the product is great. Women's hockey is great. There's less checking in it. It's still a fantastic product. But at the same time, like you mentioned, Caitlin, you need to be able to body check. You need to be able to withstand hits if you're going to have a hope in hell of making it to the NHL. And there's a lot of these prospects, a lot of these guys that are hoping to go in the first, second, third rounds, maybe even get drafted at all, where the physicality is a huge element of their game. And if they don't get the chance to showcase that against either players their age or get the chance to showcase it whatsoever, there might be in a position that because of one decision that's made by people that don't necessarily play the game or are involved in the league itself, we could see these guys not being drafted by NHL teams or going far further down and maybe not getting the sponsorship offers they might have got beforehand. So it can have a real effect on a player's career, can't it?
Yeah, and I think another major part of this is that I think part of it is because the OHL season is in doubt, but I think another part is this news about no body checking. We're seeing quite a lot of like 2021 NHL draft picks out of the OHL expressing desire to play in Europe or actually going to play in Europe. There's one that I know of, Chase Stillman, who's a draft pick for next year's NHL draft. He's gone to play in Denmark because there's no OHL hockey right now. And I think if there is no body checking, you will see a ton more of these players going like, okay, then I'll play somewhere where I can actually play a proper hockey game. Because there's nothing stopping them apart from maybe their OHL team saying yes or no. There's nothing stopping them just going to Europe.
It would, to me, it would change the game a lot, because if you can't have like an instant check and then go away, then surely you can't have any board play at all, because then you're in a massive scrum. You're far more likely, surely, to pass it in face-offs where you've got two people, faces right next to each other. And when the linesman takes forever to drop the puck, they're there for 5-10 seconds, rather than an instant hit and you're away again.
Yeah, exactly. And I think another part of it is that just it's so unlikely to get it from there. But also, if you are trying to outlaw body checking in the OHL or whatever, where do you draw the parameters of what counts as a check?
Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
How do you define it? Is it just bumping into someone? Is it just going next to someone? Is it specifically a hit along the boards, or is it something else? You get into a whole definition thing where any contact can be considered a check, any contact can be considered not a check. I reasonably cannot see how it can actually be done.
I think it's like with all of these sports, and we see it in football over here as well, is that you can't really play competitive sports and not come in close contact with other people. Like, football, where you can't make a tackle if you can't go near the person. Hockey, you can't, put someone against the boards without being close to them. They've even restarted the Six Nations. I mean, if you want for a close contact sport, check out, 15 men in a scrum with their heads all together. I think you just need to kind of get to a point where you take the precautions, but you still got to play the game the way it is.
Maybe you've just got to have social distanced hockey, and everybody has to stay 2 meters away from each other, and like that's going to be an exciting product. Then you might as well just
lie down in front of the goal.
Exactly. But then you can't get too close to the goalie, because then you're 2 meters too close, and then there's another problem. It kind of sounds like they're going to have to completely rewrite an element of the rule book, which kind of sounds like...
You may as well not call it hockey.
Exactly, and it just sounds like so much more hassle than is worth, really. It's kind of like, then you get to the point, is there any point really having a season, or going, okay, guys, kind of similar to the Elite League here and some of the other leagues, going, look, we're not going to have a season this year. Like, you've still got some time to go in the season. We haven't hit the new year yet. Go and spend a few months in either a comparable league or whichever league you want, and kind of get some reps in,
Which comes back exactly to what Caitlin said.
Yeah, exactly.